I was gonna make a video titled something like Episode 1, Noob Plays Trailmakers for the first time. But then I realized that's a terrible video topic because everyone's done it and I would just be adding to the pile. Then I realized a better video idea would be Trailmakers First Impressions Game Review. Is it clean content? Now that's an interesting video topic. So here we are. Starting with the price, this game is $29 Canadian. For the amount of content you get and for the update history this game is shown, that's a very fair price. From what I've seen over the years watching content of this game, the value will continue to go up over time with future updates. The game launches by going straight into the player customization menu, where you can modify our looks. I initially missed that the player hat and default vehicle colors can be changed in this menu, but on a different tab. I didn't notice the tabs due to being new to the UI. I assumed that because I didn't see the option here, these things could be changed later in another menu, so I selected continue. Unexpected, but honestly a good move, the game drops you straight into the main campaign and the tutorial. This makes sense, as it is the best way to start training a new player on how to play the game, and most people are going to be interested in starting the main campaign first thing anyway. Quickly, the tutorial guided me through the process of building my first vehicle, and teaches all the basics. At this point, I was a little surprised I hadn't seen the vehicle color customizations, but I knew that was maybe later on, so I held off checking for later. The first time driving in this game felt a bit odd, as it often does when the first time driving in any game, but I was surprised to feel how smooth the driving felt, but later on also how inconsistent the steep hills could be. Overall, the handling seems to be well tuned in the game, and I'm sure I'll get used to it quite quick. At this point, we met our first baddie. I already knew from Scrapman's videos that the default enemies in the game were all robots called Botnik. They all being robots is something I personally appreciate a lot, as it makes the game significantly less violent. This alone takes the main campaign of Trailmakers from a game I wouldn't even play in my free time to something I can even do on the channel. Nice work, Flashbulb. The storyline and progression of the main campaign seem well thought out, and progresses at a satisfying yet slow pace for the part I played through. It seems well balanced for medium-length playthroughs. After playing a few missions and modifying the vehicle for each one, I started to wonder where the color modifications were. Searching around the menus a bit, I eventually figured out how to change the color of the blocks individually, and in the player customization menu, I figured out how to change it on a global scale. It's hard to say whether or not these tabs weren't obvious enough to me in the first place, or whether I just got unlucky and missed them. In either case, now you know and won't miss them yourself. As far as clean content goes, we've already mentioned that the baddies are robots, and that's a huge help. When you die in game, the death animation does make it clear you actually died, with a camera zoom out animation that focuses on that being bad. So that's not great. But there's no gore. Fortunately, it's never your goal to kill someone for the campaign. The only time in game that that's not the case is if you were to join in a game mode where death is enabled and you do some sort of destruction-based PvP game, like a dogfight. But of course, both that activity and the game mode where death is enabled are optional, and game modes where that is the goal are separate from the campaign. As far as spiritual content, the game does unfortunately seem to have some after the 2.0 update from what I've seen in other videos. The first NPC we meet is Master Sapo, a name that's clearly an implication to being some sort of spiritual leader, though never shown as such in the game, but only looked to by the Froggets as a hero. One of the NPCs, a mad scientist in the first village we go to, sends you on a mission that is a literal ghost chase along with collecting some glow fruits from the game. Fortunately, though this mission auto-queues when you first blindly talk to the NPC, because it's an optional mission, you can go into your missions and cancel it at any time. To my recollection from seeing other videos, there's multiple missions from him around this topic. Likewise, later in the game, from what I've seen in other videos, there's one mission to go check up on some Froggets in the swamp who are clearly and quite explicitly doing witchcraft as you arrive and chat with them. Not something I'm even willing to watch, not to mention play. I don't know whether or not this mission is optional, but I suspect it is due to it not being necessary for the main storyline. There's also a mission to investigate rumors of a monster in the swamp biome, but it turns out to just be an old Botnak drill. I suspect this one is a mandatory mission. That's all the spiritual content I know of in the game, but there very likely could be more of it, as I've only know from watching the videos myself, and as I said, I'm coming into this game new. So if you're someone who likes to avoid demonic spiritual content in games like me, this is quite the stain on the game, and quite the disappointment when the rest of the game is so good. The NPCs in game do use some mild language, even as far as referencing cusses without saying them. Now it may sound like I think this game is full of garbage, or that I really don't like the game, but in fact quite the opposite is true. This game does so much right, and I love the gameplay of this game, especially the building system, and I think the dev team have made something amazing. I also love how much the developers interact with and get feedback from the community. The negative things I've said in this video are literally the worst parts of the game that I know of. I'm sharing these parts with you so you can make better educated decisions about the media you consume. Of what I've seen so far, despite some larger problems I mentioned earlier, the problematic parts are so few and far between, as well as being so avoidable, that this game as a whole I would still give a 4 out of 5 on a clean content scale, with the reference point being 5 out of 5 for Nuke. As my brother said about the game, this is a game I'd let my kids play. With some restrictions against destruction PvP when death is turned on, and prior education about the spiritual connections in the game including what to avoid, I'd have to agree. On another note, on a fun scale, I'd give Trailmakers a 5 out of 5. If you don't know what I'm referring to when I say Nuke, check the link in the description to see the standards I follow for my channels. Anyway, that's all I have for this first impression review on the game. If you found this helpful in any way or want to support my work, subscribe, and consider donating or becoming a member through YouTube, Patreon, or Ko-Fi. I also have a Discord server where we have a channel just for talking about clean content sources, so go check that out too. Anyway, this is Cheddar Fox, and I'm signing off. God bless!